Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Big weekend. A lot happened. There was so much going on with the start of NBA free agency today, by the way. News on that. Plus, the Phillies had a disappointing weekend, kind of, sort of, maybe. But yes, and yes, they did, even though it kind of ended the same way that it started. Why was it? Can they get out of this funk? Did we see something yesterday that should make us feel better? Mike McGarry, columnist over at the Press of Atlantic City. His must-win column appears every Friday in the Press, and he joins me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at this time, like right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
All is well, man. I know, so we talk Phils as we get ready for the series completing against the Pirates, and they're at the same spot they were when I talked to you on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of shows what that division is about, right? The NL East, mediocrity personified, right? The Phillies dropped 2 out of 3 to the Pirates. The Braves dropped 2 out of 3, and the Mets dropped 2 out of 3 to the Cincinnati Reds. So Phillies still 3.5 games back. I think the Phillies, though, got to feel good about what Kyle Gibson did yesterday, going out there 6 2/3 innings. He was as advertised. And if they are going to win this thing, they're going to need more starting pitching outings like that.
Right. So they're 3.5 back, as you mentioned. New York loses, but they lose DeGrom now. We found out until at least September. If you're the Phillies, and yes, you lose 2 out of 3, you could have been just a game and a half back if you played some good baseball. But knowing that you're 3.5 back, you saw the outing you got from Gibson. Do you feel better today if you're a Met fan or a Phillies fan?
Well, I feel better from a Met fan because I have Javier Baez on my team, and he can obviously have a big impact. And I'm 3.5 games in front, 4 in the loss column, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be a lot to make up. So I feel better from a Met fan. But if I'm a Phillies fan or the Braves, for that matter, I haven't lost hope because now it looks like this division is going to come down to a team that can get hot for 7-8 days. If you can get hot for between 7 and 10 days, you can win this division.
Yeah, I know Gibson gave him, 6 2/3 last night. It felt pretty good about that. But, man, the 2 games over the weekend, just missed opportunities. But you got McCutchen now hurt, it looks like, for a little bit. Don't know what's going on with Rhys Hoskins. It seems that injuries are going to be a factor in this National League East. So I guess hindsight, looking back, did the Phillies do enough?
I think they did in getting Gibson. I think they did enough with what they had to offer, right? We have already decided they didn't have the sort of talent to make a trade for a Javier Baez, a Chris Bryant type of guy. They got Ian Kennedy to come in and solidify their bullpen. They got Gibson, who's already has paid dividends. They got Freddie Galvis, who hopefully when he gets healthy can sort of shore up that left side of the infield. And I think it's a huge game tonight for the Phillies. They're starting Ranger Suarez, who was the closer. They're going to try to stretch him out. I think it starts with 3 innings tonight. If they can get him to be a dependable starter, now you've got something going in that rotation. You couldn't continue with Matt Moore and Vince Velasquez pitching the way they did. So you got Gibson in. You hope to solidify. You hope to get a good outing with Ranger Suarez tonight. And then you hope Eflin comes back. And if that happens, you've got a chance in what is a very, I've said it a million times, the Phillies are a flawed team chasing a flawed team. We'll see what happens.
No question. Now, you mentioned Suarez goes into the rotation here. He was closing. Now they're going to go there. In your opinion, should they have left Suarez in that bullpen, which, yes, they got Kennedy, but now you're taking one of the better bullpen arms, Suarez, out. Is it really like, hey, you rob Peter to pay Paul?
I honestly think it's a good move putting Suarez back in the starting rotation. I think he can be effective there. I thought he was kind of living on borrowed time at that closer spot. It's asking a lot for a guy who's never done it before to go into September games and close out big games. Now you've got a guy in Ian Kennedy who's been in the major leagues for, since 2009. I think it started with the Yankees. He's kind of been around the block several times, had 16 saves, has some experience in that back end to begin with. So I actually like the move. I think, and he had no choice. You had to solidify the starting rotation. You couldn't keep playing games where you looked up and you were down 7-0 in the third inning. You just couldn't, sustain any sort of success like that.
Now, when we talked on Friday, Mike, the trade deadline had not happened. Now that it is, Spencer Howard is out. You got Gibson and Kennedy in. You also got Galvis, as you kind of chronicled. Yeah, you thought they did enough, but what about what they gave up to get what they got? Because Howard, younger guy, they essentially gave up on him to get two. Gibson's controlled, but a rental in Kennedy.
Right, absolutely. But I have no problem giving up Spencer Howard. This sort of revisionist history already starting to go along, like the Phillies blew it with Spencer Howard or they didn't develop him right. Yeah, they put him in some tough spots, but he was given every opportunity to pitch. He was given an opportunity to pitch last year. He was given an opportunity to pitch at the beginning of this year. He just didn't perform. I mean, he would throw 2 innings. He'd be at 95 miles an hour. Then he'd be down to 91 miles an hour. And then he told us that he got tired. He dropped off, the velo dropped off because he got tired because he ran at first base. Even the other night, he throws 3 good innings. Joe Girardi doesn't want to take him out of the game in the 4th inning, and all of a sudden a callus on his finger acts up, and he's got to come out of the game. And Dave Dombrowski alluded to this in his press conference on Friday. It just always seemed to be something with Spencer Howard, So I don't blame the Phillies for this situation. He was given every opportunity to prove himself here, and he just didn't get the job done.
All right, so Phil's obviously they're starting another series with Washington, and they'll have a 4-gamer with Washington, and then the Mets at the end of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, New York. So we'll see where the Phillies are when they meet the Mets on Friday before they have the Dodgers in, who are really beefed up at the trade deadline. So we got the baseball out of the way. Now, let's flip over to the football and the Carson Wentz stuff, obviously. He's got this foot injury, Mike. He's going to be out 5 to 12 weeks, which kind of takes that first-round pick and puts it in some limbo here. But if you're Philadelphia, you're looking back, obviously no regrets on that move, it seems like.
On trading him, I think you're obviously right now. If you're the Eagles management, you're thanking God you trade him, because if you didn't trade him, it would be even a bigger nightmare than you have right now. Obviously it's a huge problem for them. They're not going to have the 3 first-round draft choices. Now they'll have 2 first-rounders and probably get the second round out of the Wentz deal. But it just seems to be, since that 2017 season, since that day at the Los Angeles Coliseum where he hurt his knee, it has just been a never-ending string of what's next when it comes to Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's that. And then, of course, so that story, they're talking about the potential of bringing Nick Foles into Indianapolis. How apropos would that be?
Well, absolutely. When you look at it, and again, I was a big proponent of it. I've actually joked with people that this is what happened to Wentz now is the latest chapter in what I might call the curse of Nick Foles. Right back in 2018, the Eagles got rid of the quarterback that led them to the greatest win in franchise history, and seems like they paid a price for it ever since. And I can only hope for Eagles fans that the curse of Nick Foles does not last as long as the curse of Babe Ruth or the curse of the Billy Goat in Chicago. So they had a choice, and they chose the wrong quarterback, and now the curse of Nick Foles lives.
All right, so let's switch over to what Philly's got going on. Disappointing that Devonta Smith is going to be out with this sprained knee. I mean, how do you think these teams are going to use the 3 preseason games?
Well, I think they're going to use sparingly, basically, right? The regulars are going to play sparingly. When you look at Devonta Smith, the injury, and no one's going to overreact to an injury, a couple days in the camp, but it does sort of put up, to me, a little bit of a red light, a little bit of a warning sign from this perspective. One of the questions we had about Smith was his durability, right? He weighs 166, 170 pounds. Is he going to be durable? And now they haven't even put the pads on in camp, and he's out for a week with a knee injury. So I'm not going to overreact to, a guy being hurt 4 or 5 days in the camp, still 5-6 weeks from the start of the regular season. But my antenna is up a little bit because that was one of the concerns we had. And, 3 practices and he's out for a week with a knee injury. So before you even put on the pad. So not going to overreact, but the antenna is definitely up when it comes to him.
Yeah, I agree. Is the fact that was the question mark. Is he going to be durable enough? And here he is already out. I don't know how they're going to utilize the 3 preseasons. That to me, but he should be ready for the start to the season, but not getting these reps in training camp, that is a little bit annoying, again, with your first-round pick, because they had the same problem with Rieger last year. He was hurt, got off to a slow start, and never really got going. So both those guys now have some injury questions entering the season.
Right, and I don't think Rieger has been on the field yet either. He failed the conditioning test, and he hasn't been out there yet either. You've got a new coach in there, new system, so obviously you would want them both on the field as much as possible, especially like you said, you have one less preseason game, so you figure like game 1 is just, maybe the starters play a series or 2, and then game 2 becomes a game where the starters play half, like used to be in game 3, and then game 3 is basically, you don't want to get anybody injured, so you're going to keep your main guys out of there. So it is a concern. Again, not going to overreact, but it is a little bit of a red flag for a team that I think kind of needs everything to go right to have a good season. And so far that, they're off to a little bit of a rocky start.
Yeah,
in that direction.
I agree with that comment there, is that they need a lot of things, to stay their way. And one of the things that hasn't gone their way, Mike, the last couple of years is injuries. I mean, they've lost so many guys. Like, if they can stay healthy, keep the offensive line together, don't suffer these injuries, they could probably, hang around. But one injury to this team is detrimental. So no injuries, what's the ceiling for this team?
Yeah, I mean, you just said the key phrase there, and why I think they, I look at a team, they won 4 games last year, and you talked about no injuries on that offensive line. Why are we to believe that offensive line is going to all of a sudden be healthy? I mean, they haven't been healthy the last 3 or 4 seasons. I have no reason to think that they're going to be healthy, this year. A lot of those guys are a year older. So when I look at this football team, the Eagles, I think they're going to be an interesting football team from the perspective of you're going to want to see what Jalen Hurts is. You're going to want to see what the head coach is. You're going to want to see what Smith is. So they're going to be interesting, and they're going to have our interest. But I don't think that interest is going to be because of wins and losses. They won 4 games last year, and I think looking at their schedule, I see a team that maybe, is in that 6-7 win area now, considering they have the extra game this season. So they're going to be interesting, but I don't think that interesting is going to be because of victories on the field.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. The NBA free agency is now open. We saw Russell Westbrook traded. We see Chris Paul opted out. We saw Kawhi Leonard opted out. But Ben Simmons is still here, and apparently the asking price is very high. But, Mike, it's beginning to sound as if Simmons has now come to terms with he's going to be traded, right? Is that the vibe you're getting?
Yeah, that is the vibe I got. And if you listen to Daryl Morey's Zoom call that he had after the draft, whatever it was, 1:30 in the morning, Friday morning, I guess it would be, he did politely sort of decline to discuss the possibilities of trading Ben Simmons, but he didn't come out like he would have 3 or 4 months ago and say, we're not trading Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is a national treasure. We love Ben Simmons. It's only a matter of time before Ben and Joel win. He basically just said, look, guys, I'm not going to talk about it, and moved on from there. So there was no denial from him. A lot of reports now are bleak, but this is what Daryl Morey does, right? He's traded for Russell Westbrook. He's traded for James Harden. He's traded for Chris Paul. He's traded for superstars in the past. Last year, we didn't think there was going to be any way he could get rid of the Al Horford and Josh Richardson contracts. He did that. So a lot of people say, what are the Sixers doing? What are their options? I think this is why you hired Daryl Morey, to sort of make this deal and make it work in your favor. And he has a track record of getting superstars in the past. So he's almost the perfect guy to be trading Ben Simmons right now.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. There was a comment from Chris Mannix who said, they want what Boston got for KG and Pierce. That's what the Sixers are asking for. So I don't know. How motivated are they to move him? We shall see. I think this will be a very intriguing story because it looks like, the Heat are going to make a big play to get Kyle Lowry. Things are going to start moving here in the next 3 hours, Mike. So NBA free agency just got really interesting, and the Sixers are not going to be a big part of free agency. This is their big move. And then, of course, there was a report over the weekend that they tried to trade Tobias Harris and got turned down there. So you're right. Morey is going to be very interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think they have no choice right now but to wait to see how the Portland Trailblazers Damian Lillard situation works out. I think, Lillard is sort of the white whale, right? He's the perfect fit for the Sixers and Joel Embiid, and I almost think they might be in a situation where they have to wait to see how that situation unfolds to see if they can go get Lillard. I guess Morey's strategy right now is again, shoot for the moon, ask for a lot, and see what you got. But I think when push comes to shove, I think it's going to be the Sixers moving more pieces the other way to get rid of Simmons and get a big player back than the Sixers trading Simmons and getting a boatload of stuff in return.
He's at AC Press McGarry on Twitter. And, of course, we got plenty more this week. Mike will be back on Wednesday, Friday. Phillies in action, big series at the end of the week with the Mets. We'll be discussing all of that here, the Ben Simmons watch and more. Eagles back at camp. All right, Mike, we'll talk to you Wednesday, pal.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll see you down the road.